Laws of inheritance. Mendel presented laws of inheritance, and these laws are important as they provide us the basis about the genetics, and they also tell us about the characters that how characters inherited from parents to offsprings. So Mendel, basically known as father of genetics, because he provided us the basics about the genetics. Mendel first time reported his results in 1865. For his experiments, he chooses pea plant. Why he chooses pea plant? Because pea plant is easy to grow and hybridize artificially. Pea plant is self-fertilizing in nature, but it is easy to crossbreed it experimentally. That's why Mendel experiments are known as hybridization experiments, because he chooses two different pea plants with different traits and crossbreed them experimentally. So that's why these are known as hybridization experiments. Pea plant reproduces well and grow to maturity in a single season. So these are the reasons that's why Mendel select pea for his hybridization experiments. Mendel studies 7 characters of pea plant, and each character represent 2 traits, means each character further present in 2 different forms. The first experiment performed by Mendel are known as monohybrid crosses. It is also known as one character cross or one factor cross. So it involves only one character, and that character is controlled by a single gene. 2 parent strains were selected for that purpose and crossed. The parent strains must be true breed. What is the meaning of true breed? It means parent must be homozygous, must be present in homozygous condition. So first generation of offspring was examined, and offspring in first generation were self-fertilized, and second filial generation was observed by Mendel. Parents are represented as P1. F1 is showing the first filial generation, while F2 is representing the second filial generation. The first example of monohybrid cross is plant height, and that is a character of the plant that is present with 2 traits. The first trait is a tall and second is dwarf. So here is a monohybrid cross, and you can see a parental generation. Here is a tall plant that is mated with a dwarf plant. So tall plant and dwarf plant both are the parents, and parents must be true breed, and you can see here the parents are present in homozygous condition. So tall parent has capital T allele, tall allele, and that is present in homozygous condition. Similarly, dwarf parent has dwarf allele that is present in homozygous condition. So both of these parents will form the gametes, and these gametes unite with each other, forming the F1 offspring. So F1 offsprings are present in heterozygous condition. So tall allele from one parent and dwarf allele from the other parent combine with each other, forming the F1 offspring. So all F1 offsprings are present in heterozygous condition. But the phenotype of F1 offspring is tall. That is indicating that tall allele is dominant over dwarf allele. Then F1 offspring is mated with F1 offspring, is crossed with F1 offspring, and F2 generation was observed by Mendel. So Mendel observed 3 out of 4 offsprings tall, while 1 out of 4 offsprings dwarf. So in F2 generation, Mendel observed phenotypic ratio that is 3:1, means 3 tall offsprings and 1 dwarf offspring. while the genotype ratio is 1:1, means one homozygous tall offspring, two heterozygous tall offsprings, and one homozygous dwarf offspring. So dwarf is basically a recessive phenotype that will express itself only in case of homozygous condition, while tall is the dominant phenotype that will express itself in homozygous condition or in heterozygous condition. Mendel also do reciprocal crosses, but the results in F2 generation were same. So it was indicated that characters selected by Mendel were not sex dependent, means those characters selected by Mendel were controlled by genes present on the autosomal chromosomes. These genes were not sex dependent, or these genes were not present on the sex chromosomes. That's why when Mendel performed reciprocal crosses, the results of F2 generation were same. So what is a reciprocal cross? It means if in the first cross, Mendel chooses tall male parent and crossed it with dwarf female parent. So in the reciprocal cross, Mendel do the opposite case, in which he chooses tall female parent and crossed it with dwarf male parent. So the results in F2 generation were same, and the ratio is 3:1. So these were the characters selected by Mendel. And first character is flower color. Dominant trait is purple and recessive trait is white. Second character is flower position, and its two traits are axial or terminal, in which axial is dominant trait, terminal is recessive. Third character is seed color, that is yellow or green. Yellow is dominant color, green is recessive. Seed shape, round or wrinkled. Round is dominant seed shape and wrinkled is recessive seed shape. Next character is pod shape, that is inflated or constricted. Inflated is dominant trait, constricted is recessive. Then pod color, that may be present in green or yellow color. Green is dominant pod color and yellow is recessive color. And last character is stem length, that is tall or dwarf, and tall is dominant, dwarf is recessive. So Mendel observed these ratios, and almost he observed 3 out of 4 offsprings in F2 generation with showing the dominant phenotype, while 1 out of 4 offspring in F2 generation were showing the recessive phenotype. So for the monohybrid crosses, the ratio is 3:1 in F2 generation. So what are the conclusions of monohybrid crosses? The first conclusion is that unit factors are present in pair form. What are the unit factors? Actually, Mendel uses a factor word for the gene. Factor term was used by Mendel, and later on, this factor term was replaced with the gene term. So, according to Mendel, genetic characters are controlled by unit factors or the genes existing in pair form in individual organism. As you know, each individual has homologous chromosome. Each diploid individual has homologous chromosomes, mean chromosomes are present in pair form, and on these pair of the chromosome, genes are present with its copies. So gene is also present in pair form on the homologous chromosome. So second concept given by Mendel is the dominance or recessiveness concept. And according to this, when two unlike unit factors are present responsible for single character in a single individual, one unit factor is dominant to the other, which is recessive. So it means if heterozygous situation is there and two different alleles are present in a single individual and that alleles are controlling a single character. In that case, for example, we have a heterozygous situation for tall allele or dwarf allele. Capital T, that is showing the tall allele, and small t is showing the dwarf allele. So that is a case of heterozygosity, but the phenotype of individual is tall. That is showing that tall allele is dominant while dwarf allele is recessive. So that is also known as law of dominance. And according to law of dominance, when two unlike unit factors are present and when two different alleles are present in heterozygous situation, in that case, one allele that is expressing itself phenotypically is the dominant, while the other allele which cannot express itself in the presence of dominant allele, that is known as recessive. And the last concept given by Mendel on the basis of monohybrid cross is the law of segregation, and that is the first law of inheritance. And according to the law of segregation, during the formation of gametes, the paired unit factors separate or segregate from each other randomly so that each gamete receives one or the other with equal likelihood. It means when unit factors are present in pair form and when gene is present in pair form, for example, we have pair of gene and we have two alleles in this pair, capital T and small t. So when that individual will form gametes, at that time, both of these alleles separate from each other. So one allele passed into one gamete, while the other allele passed into other gamete, like this. So one gamete will form with tall allele, while the other gamete receives the dwarf allele. So law of segregation states that during the formation of gametes, the paired unit factors or the gene pairs separate or segregate from each other so that gamete receive one or the other factor with equal likelihood. Law of segregation is also known as law of purity of gametes because we have pure gametes that contain only single copy of the gene. So that is the law of segregation, and in this gamete will form and these gametes receive single copy of the allele, single copy of the gene. So that is the law of segregation, and I will discuss the next law of inheritance, that is the law of independent assortment, in my next lecture.